Okay, folks. I know that I disappear for weeks at a time and then just randomly drop a video. But I do put in a lot of effort into every story, and I like to think that when I do post, it's worth your time. It seriously means a lot to me just knowing that I have such patient and loyal listeners. Y'all are literally the best, and I cannot ask for more. And now, if you're new here and find my stories interesting, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. Since I clearly don't have an upload schedule, be sure to hit that bell notification so you could get notified when I do drop a video. Alright, enjoy the story. Imagine driving down a road lined with almond trees on both sides for miles, and there's nothing but your car's headlights cutting through the darkness. It was in California where this particular town was, out in the countryside where there were lots and lots of almond trees. The houses there were at least 1 block's length away from each other, so you could see your neighbor's house, but it was far in the distance. My parents bought a house in this area and we moved in when I was 13. Our house consisted of 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. It was a very small house. However, on the contrary, our backyard was pretty big. It was open and there was a big, beautiful, luscious tree that provided shade for the whole yard.
菜其實就頭個老婆種解那個更高嘅呢鐵筋真這麼着咯。
Right after moving in, my parents turned almost half of our yard into a chicken coop and started raising chickens. I shared a bedroom with my 2 younger brothers. The window in that room gave direct view of the yard and the chicken coop. It was far from what most would consider a perfect life, but I was content at the time because this was the first house that my parents owned since getting to the US. And most importantly, it allowed us to live near my nitai, who was down the road 2 houses away. I started making friends at the new school, and with each passing day, it became easier adapting to life in the countryside. Just as everything was starting to fall into place for my family, strange things began happening. There was something about moving to the countryside, the loneliness and isolation, that led me to listening to Hmong songs, and I grew to love them. This was during the time period when you would still record messages onto cassettes and ship them back and forth between you and your overseas relatives. My mom had a Walkman cassette player for this very reason, and it was this cassette player that I used to listen to my Hmong music. One evening, excitedly from my backpack, I pulled out the cassette that my Hmong friend from school lent me. I inserted the cassette into the cassette player, and I sat on my bed to listen. My friend mixed a bunch of random Hmong songs onto it, so I was rewinding back and forth, looking for a song that I liked.
Oh, I like this song.
I set the cassette player onto the open window ledge. As the fresh breeze from the window was blowing in, I closed my eyes and focused on the song. My eyes shot open. The music was playing in reverse, very slowly, in a manner that I didn't even know was possible on the cassette player. I was going to grab the cassette player and see what the problem was with it. Before even reaching over, I spotted what was causing the problem. 2 pale hands had reached through the window, and it was holding onto the cassette player. Its stiff fingers were fidgeting with the buttons. I jumped out of the bed and screamed with fear. Upon hearing my screams, the hand instantly dropped the Walkman and pulled back out into the darkness. The player clattered onto the floor, and the music kept going in reverse, very slowly. I didn't even dare to look outside. I just rushed to the window, slammed it shut, and then ran out. I was so creeped out by the whole thing, but I didn't tell my parents. Since we were so isolated out in the countryside, I didn't think it was a good idea to scare the rest of my family. For their sake, I acted as normal as I could for the rest of that night. The window was right by the headboard of my bed, so when I slept, my head rested just inches below the window. I felt uneasy sleeping with my head by the window that night, so I moved my pillow to the foot of the bed and I slept in reverse. As I laid in bed trying to fall asleep, from my backpack, I heard. The cassette player was playing music on its own. Then the window slowly slid open. And the same pair of hands reached in. It stiffly swayed and then twisted at the wrist, flip-flopping awkwardly like how those old Hmong ladies dance at parties. No Hmong song was worth getting haunted and having night terrors for, so I gave the cassette back to my friend at school that day.
Wow, cái nhạc khó cái món nào mò xe, nó có chỉ là cá món được cô à? Có chỉ nào ở bên nó chẳng là? Oh, it's okay. 我都没有走啊。只要我听到讲câu chỉ hay có chỉ nhạc是不？No, hay cơ mà, có chỉ mà cũng không走呢。我离了嘛。要说这个啥给多的还过呢？ Yeah, thank you.
I don't know if her cassette was cursed or what, but I was done with it and I didn't want it anywhere near me. A few days later, again at school, my friend approached me.
Hey, con gái của đại ca sĩ mong long na có bộ tông của chẳng có lự. No, của chị tao ủa chà. Really? Cause cũng long ủa chà của chẳng có bộ ta lì na. Here, you try listening to it. Mình chết tỏ thế này.
She handed me her headphones and I put them on. It wasn't completely silent like a tape that had been wiped. There was light static and some faint lyrics in the background. It seemed like the music was still there, just really quiet, so I dialed up the volume to see if I could hear better. I didn't recall there being gutsia on the cassette when I was listening to it. This was strange. That binging sound. It sounded familiar. Just like the door on the chicken coop at home. I was almost certain that this had somehow been recorded at our house. The only thing that made me doubt it was that my mom didn't know how to sing gutsia. I handed the headphones back to my friend.
Oh, cái lẽ mà cô là nụ sợ. Cái thật sự cô mà lấy hai cậu của tôi nó thấy cho chết rồi cô.
We dropped the conversation and left it there. A few weeks later, I was given a CD player from my uncle and he burned a stash of CDs for me. The CD player was one of those that could hold up to 6 discs at once, so it felt like a huge upgrade from my mom's Walkman. I had it set up on a small table in my room, and as long as I was in the home, music was always playing. I loved it. Not long after having this CD player, unbeknownst to me at the time, my mom had her very own encounter. There was one day where my siblings and I were at school and my dad was at work. My mom got off work early and came home. While she was eating alone in the kitchen, my mom made her way to my room to turn off the CD player. She gets back to the kitchen and continues with her lunch. The guitar began playing again from my room. Once again, she goes to my room to turn it off. She bent over and reached behind the table to unplug it. Her fingers couldn't quite reach the outlet, so she crouched down further and moved the table slightly. She ran her hand along the back of the player, down the cord, and then when it reached the end, it wasn't even plugged in. My mom took her stuff and left. She stayed over at my Natai's place down the road until we and my dad came home. We continued to live the next few months quietly, and everything actually felt kind of normal. Little did we know, there was a nightmare quietly brewing, waiting to serve itself. As the oldest child, it was one of my duties in the evening to round up the chickens, make them go back into their coop, and then lock everything up. On this particular night, I rounded up the chickens and got them to go back into their coop as usual. As I was locking up the door, my mom yelled from the kitchen window.
The
chicken coop was mostly made out of chicken wire fencing. The whole upper half of the coop was wrapped with tarps to keep cold wind from going in. Since I had already showered and I didn't want to go inside the coop, I stood on the outside and Asian squatted down to peek through the bottom half into the coop. I saw that the chicken's water bowl was nearly empty. I remember letting out a big sigh, accepting that I'd have to refill the bowl and then just take another shower when I was done. I got the water from the hose and made my way back to the chicken coop. As I reached for the door handle and was about to open it, something stopped me. Through the same gap that I was peeking through earlier, I saw a pair of legs inside the chicken coop. I knew it wasn't my mom, my dad, or any of my siblings, because its feet were hovering inches above the ground. I could tell it was wearing traditional Hmong clothes. I saw the black pants, and flickering in and out of my sight were the green and pink sashes. I stood there frozen, trying to be as quiet as I could. I stared at the legs as they glided silently around the inside of the chicken coop. I wasn't sure how I was going to retreat back to the house without it noticing me. I whipped my head around. It was my mom, coming to see why I was taking so long. I instantly looked back into the coop, and it was gone. Whatever I saw was no longer inside. My mom, not aware of what I had just seen, took the water jug from me and finished up before we headed back into the house. As soon as we got in and my mom locked the door behind us, I broke down crying. I told her about the floating legs that I saw in the chicken coop.
ôi, cháu hiểu được trả cái mà. Chả cái dùng một hai chuyện có. Mom, cô bảo thế tê ho.
She stared down at the floor and quietly muttered,
Ayo, tên nói ni một đau. Chỉ làm một tên thu nè đại rồi na, tên lúc nè giảm mông à.
The way she said it was not convincing at all. It sounded more like she was trying to reassure herself, not me. If my mom wasn't fully convinced about my story that night, the next morning she didn't need any more convincing. We woke up to the sound of chickens, not clucking, but silence. There was a heavy, unnatural silence from the chicken coop. When my parents opened it up, they discovered every single one of our chickens scattered across the dirt floor, lifeless. We've had incidents in the past where foxes or raccoons had killed a few of our chickens, but this was not normal. No blood, no bite marks. My parents were really quiet that day. They tore down the chicken coop because there were no more plans to raise chickens. The only plan was to make an exit plan. They knew that this time it was the chickens, but next time, it could very well be us. We were no longer safe at this house. One day while my dad was driving back home, he noticed our Hispanic neighbor outside and he decided to stop and talk. They made some small talk and then my dad asked if he knew anything about the history of our house. He said he didn't know much, but he remembered the previous family being Asians like us. He lowered his voice and glanced toward our backyard.
That tree in your yard? You know, the mom, she hung herself from it. She hung herself from it. She hung herself from it. She hung herself from it.
With the new information that my dad had just learned from our neighbor, we visited my nitai and looped her in about everything that's been going on at the house.
Tôi sẽ theo bảo tỏ nên nè hay liệu nói nên tự ye mấy cái của tôi rồi bán nên mình nhỏ à cũng nên chúa tại điện tự sinh na hà của chỉ bỏ nhà á chỉ là một dịp liên tự luôn nè khó tài là một我上去那楼了和我在是喏我家因接头中多正保给着着cũng một như nét ở rong đồ rong bỏ sở tiếng nè rong thì trả đồ bể cho nè căn tông nếu mà nè hay cứ chia tiếng tôi phía dân họ nên nè trả hai mô mô chữ đà của chia
For the next several months, while my parents tried to sell the house, we had no choice but to stay there. It didn't matter whether I was in the house or outside. I was always looking over my shoulders. Every morning, we would leave a seemingly normal house, but when we came back, dozens of cats would be lurking on the property. Some were even walking on the roof of the house. My mom's small vegetable garden kept getting ruined. The vegetables were repeatedly stomped on, with obvious human footprints left behind each time. We were clearly being toyed with, but my parents made sure that we stayed collective and we didn't acknowledge it. The house finally sold in 2001, and we quietly moved back to the cities. Luckily, whatever it was, it didn't follow us. And that was the end of it. For a house that we only lived in briefly, it still haunts me in ways that I can't explain. Even now, most of my dreams still take place in that house, as if a part of me never left. I no longer live in California, but the last time that I visited my parents there, my husband wanted to see that house, so we took a drive through the countryside. Everything had changed so much. Most of the homes were boarded up and abandoned. The area was even quieter than what I remembered.
你都这怪有种闹闹。
I barely recognized it. The house was gone, reduced to rubble from what seemed to have probably been a house fire. Nothing was left except that big, luscious tree in the yard.